All right. Well, welcome to the 5 p.m. So I am the other Ryan, the young adults pastor, and we are just so happy to have you for Thanksgiving Sunday, right? We are about to enter into a week of gratitude. And so tonight we are going to be having this conversation, how to be thankful. Now, this week means for a lot of us, if your family is anything like mine, every year my family would have this ritual where my dad would sit us around the table. We'd have a great spread. My mom would slave away in the kitchen. And he would sit us down, and we'd all be forced to go around the table. And he'd ask this question, what are you thankful for? And I hated it because I just drew a blank. You see, the circle would come around to me, and I'd be stressing out, like, what am I going to say? Right? And I didn't want to sound like I was coming up with something fake, but every single time that the rotation would finally come to me, I would just find myself just saying one of the familiar things. Oh, I'm thankful for God. I'm thankful for family. I'm thankful for a good time, right? All these different things were coming to my head. Now, as I'm describing this, some of you guys might be horrified, like, man, what an entitled little punk. He couldn't think of one thing to be thankful for. In all the things that he has been given and all these opportunities, all these privileges, all these blessings, I could not be helped in that moment. Now, to which my response is, am I really to blame? Am I really to blame? Or is my drawing a blank just a symptom of a deeper problem? Am I the reason why I can't think of thankfulness? Or is there something that I am a part of? Is there a society that I'm a part of that is actually cultivating a posture of ingratitude? That we only seriously ask this question one time a year. That I'm so untrained as a child of having to answer the question, what am I thankful for? And yet I am not unfamiliar with asking what I want. In fact, I've been thinking about that all year. And those that love me have been clamoring for a Christmas list since September for 3 months. But I can't be bothered to answer the question, what am I actually thankful for? But I've got a laundry list of things that I want, things that I don't need, and yet things that I'm clamoring for. You know what's frustrating about Thanksgiving is it's also turning into a holiday in which we are desperate to figure out how to avoid those political conversations, right? The number one night, well, there was a study done and I couldn't find it, so maybe don't take my word for it. But there was a study that I found that said that bar attendance in America skyrockets the night before Thanksgiving. The reason, some speculate, is because everyone's in town. And they're trying to catch up with friends and people they haven't seen in a while. Other reasons speculate, well, it's because they're with family. They're trying to get away before the big day. In which everyone's dancing around political issues, hot button topics. How many of you guys have been going through strategies this week to make sure that those family members are not triggered by those conversations that we all know not to talk about? And yet what's frustrating also in the midst of all of this is that we as a society know what the point of the very next day is, don't we? We move from gratitude to grasping, talking about what we're thankful for, the things that we've been provided, and yet grasping after things that we don't need, and killing each other for it. Every year at least one person dies on Black Friday, needlessly, because our collective greed, wanting to grasp after things, again, that we do not need. We're mindful of the things that we don't have, and we think that we deserve the things that we do, or that we're at least entitled to them. Man, with the point of all of this opening rant, you might be asking yourself, what in the world is he talking about? It's just to simply ask the question, how can we hope to be thankful? How can we hope to be thankful? Especially in a world that is notoriously full of first world problems. How in the world can we cultivate a heart that is serious about Thanksgiving? Rather than drawing a blank every single time, we just ask ourselves this question seriously one time a year. Now, in order to answer this question, we're going to be in the book of Lamentations. I'm going to be in the book of Lamentations, chapter 3. And as you're turning there, just a couple things on the book of Lamentations. Scholars speculate this is written by the prophet Jeremiah, prophet otherwise known as the weeping prophet. And he's a prophet that actually was an eyewitness to the sacking of Jerusalem. He was there before the siege ended, and he was there afterwards to see the aftermath of it. And so he sits at this posture and this point in Israel's history in which he's mindful of what Israel had. And he's also very mindful of what Israel doesn't have. And he says in chapter 3, I am the man who has seen affliction. By the rod of the Lord's wrath, he has driven me away and made me walk in darkness rather than light. He has turned his hand against me. Again and again, all day long. Now, as Jeremiah is writing this, again, he is writing this as a prophet. He's writing this as an individual man. And yet, so much of the book of Lamentations, so much of his prophecy, everything that's written, makes us uncomfortable, does it not? Because in the ways he talks about God. We, as churchgoers, as people familiar with Scripture, right, we sit here and we read these words of the weeping prophet, and it makes us uncomfortable because he's talking about God in ways that are truthful to how he has experienced the season. What would that look like for you and for me to actually pray what we really believed? As opposed to praying things that we thought were the right answer. Like me trying to figure out the right answer around the dinner table, right? Thanksgiving Day. What if instead we were honest with one another and honest before our Father, because the prophet himself is doing so? Who are we to disagree with the prophet? He continues in verse 4. He has made my skin and my flesh grow old and has broken my bones. He has besieged me and surrounded me with bitterness and hardship. He has made me dwell in darkness like those long dead. He has walled me in so I cannot escape. He has weighed me down with chains. Even when I call out or cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has barred my way with blocks of stone. He has made my paths crooked. Now, what's interesting is the fact that Jeremiah is, again, writing this as an individual man. He's writing this as a prophet, but he's also writing this as a representative for the whole nation. So when he's describing God walling him in, not listening to his prayers, making his paths crooked, he's writing on behalf of Israel's experience and experience during the Babylonian invasion. He's writing on behalf of Israel and Israel's collective tragedy. The ruin that the Babylonian army rampaged through the city of Jerusalem and destroyed the nation, carted off the Jews to exile. Jeremiah is putting himself in the position of the entire country. And on account of that, he laments. On account of that, he mourns. He says this in verse 10, like a bear lying in wait, like a lion in hiding. He, God, dragged me from the path and mangled me and left me without help. He drew his bow and made me the target for his arrows. He pierced my heart with arrows from his quiver. I became the laughingstock of all my people. They mock me in song all day long. He has filled me with bitter herbs and given me gall to drink. He has broken my teeth with gravel. He has trampled me in the dust. I have been deprived of peace. I have forgotten what prosperity is. You're like, man, I thought this was a Thanksgiving message. Now, I don't know about you, and again, we as 21st century Americans live in a land of great abundance, great blessing, and yet is there not just a part of you that resonates with these words? We're entering into another Thanksgiving that nobody foresaw. We're in the midst of a renewed conflict as a nation when it comes to racial justice. We're in a context in which COVID cases are rising, job loss is prevalent, deaths in the community. Your families, your friends, my friends, everyone is having to grapple with the tension and the challenges and trying to love each other in the process in the midst of all this turbulence that doesn't seem to end, of a world turned upside down. There's not a part of you that resonates either as an individual or as a collective about what Jeremiah is writing about. Jeremiah concludes, he says, "So I say, my splendor is gone, and all that I had hoped from the Lord." You see, what's rough about life is that we collect and cultivate expectations that we ultimately inevitably put on God's shoulders as well. And so when we don't get what we want, we have expectations that are frustrated. We get depressed, disappointed, hardened to the reality of life. You see, Israel's history had started out in glory. God had revealed himself to Moses. He had miraculously liberated the slaves of Egypt, and he had led them through demonstrations of power. He'd given them covenant and promises. And yet that entire history and all the expectations that were being cultivated along the way ended in nothing but rubble. And all the expectations were disappointed. See, that's exactly what expectations do. They set us up for disappointment. That which we think we deserve haunts us. That which we are entitled to frustrates us. Now, I don't know how you entered this fall. I entered this fall very optimistic. I was very optimistic this fall. I was starting seminary. I was in year 4 of my time as college pastor. I had aligned our ministries more closely with the church, with our church than I had ever been in my time here. And I was going into 1 year of marriage, and our trailer is like looking better than it's ever been. It's beautiful in there. It's a 5-star tiny experience, but it is beautiful. And yet, as I was entering into all of these difficult and new opportunities for myself, I quickly began to realize that yet again, I was the clown trying to juggle a hopeless amount of commitments, responsibilities, things that I had not figured out, things I could never have been hoped to have figured out, things I could not have foreseen. And suddenly, this fall that at first held so much promise and expectation, all of a sudden became such a bummer. And again, I'm a man that's very blessed. And yet again, as that reality began to sink in at about the beginning of October, and as I began to really realize how bad my grades were doing in my seminary classes, all of a sudden I began to have honest conversations with God. How could you have set me up for this? Did you not see this coming? I thought you had led me into this season, into this moment in which ministry was going to be fruitful, in which my classes were going to be a success. You know, the ways that you were going to move and shape and arrange my life, I thought that this was going to be the prime of life. And yet again, the lesson that I learned, and it's all too familiar, right? It's all too familiar, and I cannot seem to quite shake it. But all that this revealed was just that how entitled my heart actually is. And I can't seem to ever figure that out. It's a lesson that God just has me on repeat with. And that's exactly what disappointment reveals. It reveals our entitled heart. You and I are going into this Thanksgiving not really aware or not thinking, aware of the things that we don't have or the things that we wish we had but don't have. And yet, as Jeremiah, the author of this whole lament, describes elsewhere, the heart is deceitful above all else. Deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? See, disappointment, if nothing else, reveals the ways in which we think we are owed something. And this is where it's so frustrating, is regardless of how noble the desire, no matter how great the plan, no matter how capable we might be as men and women, this heart is deceitful. And it deceives us time and again. And it sets us up for expectations and deservedness in ways that, if we were honest, would embarrass all of us. Now, there's multiple ways that I think the heart is deceitful, but there's a couple of ways that I'm hoping to lay out with my beautiful charts here. The degree to which I want, at the subconscious default level, I am predisposed to thinking that I deserve that thing. The degree to which I want something, my heart is predisposed by default to believe that I also deserve it. Because the heart's deceitful. And the things that I want are worth it, are they not? Even the things I want for God. Who are you, Lord, to withhold this from me? This is a win-win. And yet you continue to frustrate my plans. You see, the more that we want something, the more we truly believe we deserve it. Now, I'm not saying in every case, but I am saying as a default subconscious beginning point, the human heart has this starting point. And personally, where I see this the most prevalent, not only in my own life, but also in my ministry, is in relationships. Because my ministry is full of single people that wish they were not single. And they don't understand why God would withhold something that is good for them. That is beautiful. That is worthy to be desired. The difficult thing about this is that if you begin to think of a relationship or another person as a need, you can never accept them as a gift. And that is exactly what other human beings are. They are gifts. The minute you depend on them as a need, they frustrate you, they disappoint you. Paul says, be careful that you do not devour one another in the context of the church, but man, I guess that can also apply to marriage, does it not? Now, the thing with single people is also reflective of those in committed relationships, because we can't hope but cultivate ideals and fantasies and expectations in our brain, and then when there's a real human being that inevitably disappoints those, we grow bitter, resentful, because we are being withheld something that we deserve. Because we have needs that are not being met. And I am owed a marriage that satisfies me completely, in every way, 100% of the time. If I'm not careful, that is very quickly the mindset that I adopt a year into marriage, right? Pray for me. The road is long. And yet that is the way that the human heart works. Another way that that works is also in the context of how much we want. It's also in the area of how prevalent the thing is. Again, in relationships, if we see everyone else talk about a marriage that's satisfying, a relationship that's happy, and we begin to think, hey, I'm being left out of that. I deserve a cut of the pie, don't I? Who are they to get what I don't have, especially when they're less deserving of it? And it's funny because when you begin to do that game, you realize no one is more deserving than you, right? Because the heart is deceitful. The heart is deceitful above all else, and it is preferential, and it is in its judgments, in its thinking. One of the areas that is the most painful to witness this is in chronic conditions. There's a saying that a friend of mine said. It says, a healthy man has many wishes, a sick man has but one. And man, some of the sweetest people that I have met in my life are people with chronic conditions, people that cannot see, people that cannot walk, people with a limited cognitive capability. And yet some of the most bitter people I have met on this planet are also those with the same conditions. Explain that. The heart's deceitful. And if everyone is able to walk except for me, well, then I'm predisposed to resent God of something that I believe I am owed. The frustrating thing about this is that when you begin to compare everyone's hand and you begin to compare struggles and pains, is that there always seems to be somebody who's had a harder go at life than you. Where does that game end? As soon as you begin to compare sufferings, as soon as you begin to compare journeys, there's always somebody who's been through it worse. And then when you begin to do this in the areas of life that are truly significant, then it also bleeds over into other parts of life as well. This one area of deservedness, this one area of entitlement, bleeds over into the rest of life. And before you know it, we become bitter people because none of life is a gift. The degree to which I want something is the degree to which I'm predisposed to believe that I deserve it, and likewise, the more common something is, the more I truly believe I deserve it. Those are just two areas. But the heart is deceitful and completely incomprehensible. And so if that's the reality, right? If this fancy chart, the things I want, plus the things that most people have represent the red, and the green are the things that I can actually receive as gifts, do you realize how we have set ourselves up for ingratitude from the very beginning? And the only reason I know this is because I'm ungrateful. And I've lived my life ungrateful. And like the kid at Thanksgiving, over and over again, I drop a blank. And until the Lord has revealed to me that, no, your life expectations don't match on with reality, that's the only time in which I have been aware of this discrepancy. Now, some of you might think of that passage in which Jesus mentions that God desires good gifts to his children. That's exactly what it says in Matthew 7, right? Your Father in heaven loves to give what is good to those who ask him. It's a beautiful promise, and I believe it wholeheartedly. But I also believe wholeheartedly that God does not spoil his children. And when we think that we are owed something, God's fatherly discipline says otherwise. The more I believe I am deserving of good things, the fewer things I can receive as gifts. See, if I approach all of life from a posture of entitlement, a posture of deservedness, there's so few things that I can actually receive as the gifts that they are. I cannot receive anything as a gift. If I deserve anything, it's not a gift. It's a right. It's a need. It says deservedness is totally counterintuitive to Thanksgiving. And I'm sure that people you know, people you've seen, people in your own life, you know that the people that have a posture of deservedness, of entitlement, of things that are owed to them, you realize that life just doesn't work out for those people. It beats them up, tears them to shreds, continues to frustrate them because they have yet to learn the lesson. And you just think about the two differences between the fist that is clenched about the things that's been given and in defiance against God versus the hand that recognizes the Lord gives and the Lord takes. Every moment, every breath, every relationship, every opportunity, every meal. Praise God. Every opportunity. And yet the human predisposition is to clench its fists because the heart is deceitful. And the only reason I know this is because I have lived that deception. And it wasn't until that God took an entitled 20-something and put him to the grindstone, frustrated every expectation and desire that he had, taught him a couple things, that the mask began to eventually come off. And I realized how good I had it. And I realized how blessed I was. And that there were no guarantees that I was owed. And all of a sudden, my sense of deservedness began to diminish. And all of a sudden, a bunch of things began to pop to my mind about the things I'm grateful for. Because it's not owed to me. It's all a gift. That's what thankfulness looks like. Is when we actually relinquish what we think we deserve. We relinquish our rights. And as Americans, that's a pretty tough thing to do. Because what's better than our rights? But the heart of thankfulness recognizes I'm owed nothing. There are no guarantees. There are no givens. That's exactly what thankfulness is. Recognizing we don't deserve anything of what we have received. We deserve none of it. Now, if you just even think about it, right? The way life itself went. I mean, in order for you and for me to even come into existence, Think about all the little things that had to happen for your parents to even meet, let alone for your mom to be convinced to marry your dad. Right? She had to accept his terrible sense of humor. A miracle enough. That's just one set of life choices. Imagine their parents. And all the things that had to be just right just for them to meet. Imagine their parents, and it's so on and so on. And you begin to realize that history had to happen exactly the way that it went in order for you and I to even be here. It just defies expectation. The odds are against us. And even when they met, you know what the odds are that you got to your mom's egg first? It's 1 in 250 million. 1 in 250 million. My goodness. Just the odds of that. Of all the things in history that had to happen, that had to be just right. Of you becoming into this world. I mean, the fact that you are even here defies the odds. You and I. It's a miracle. Complete miracle. Unfathomable miracle. The odds are totally against us from the very beginning. G.K. Chesterton, reflecting on this reality and also reflecting on the look of shock that babies have, he described life came as a shock, but not an unpleasant one. Whoa, I'm here. I don't even know what that means. And yet it happened. You see, life itself, we did nothing to deserve life. We had no say in it. It was given. We had no hand in it and no rights. And it's a gift we can never pay back. It's a gift we can never pay back. There's nothing that you and I can do to pay back the gift that we're given. And I think that haunts us. And I think we're desperate to prove that we matter. I think we're haunted by opportunities to try to prove that we've done something with our lives that merit our existence. You could almost say justify our existence. We're looking for something to justify that you and I are here because we understand that the odds are against us. Now, you still might be sitting there, right? As I have often done, with fists clenched because you are just livid. Because you have done everything you're told to do. You've played by the rules. You've done what God has asked. And yet you are still being withheld the thing you deeply desire. You still might be sitting with that. Because I have often found myself in that same position. C.S. Lewis, in his novel, Till We Have Faces, expresses this same sentiment through his main character. He asks, are the gods not just? To which the mentor figure of the book responds with, oh no, child. What would become of us if they were? What would become of us if God gave us what we deserved? This is what God's justice looks like. This is what we are owed. Not this, as in him, but the thing that he's on. That is exactly what you and I deserve. Praise God he doesn't give us what we deserve. Praise God that he took what we deserved upon him. And instead of giving us what we deserved, he gave us something immeasurably better. Unfathomably better. And this is the starting point of life. But I mean, even more beyond the starting point, it's the second chance of life. And what's funny is that even before the cross, this is something that the Jewish people understood. Psalm 103, he does not treat us as our sins deserve. or repay us according to our iniquities. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his love for those who fear him. Praise God, he doesn't give us what we deserve. The Jews themselves understood this. Praise God that he doesn't give us what he deserved. Instead, praise God that he gives us himself. Praise God that he gave himself. And the thing is, that's exactly the hope that anchored Jeremiah in a season in which he had nothing. Jeremiah says in verse 24, I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. I've got the Lord. I've got everything I need. Everything I need. The promise of his presence and his power in my life is enough to keep me breathing, enough to keep me kicking, enough for another day. It's a hope that all of salvation history held onto from the very beginning. God says to Abraham, do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. Psalm 72, whom have I in heaven but you, and the earth has nothing I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. He is who I have. He is the gift that's been given on top of all the other things that I don't deserve. See, that was the exact vision that gave Jeremiah the opportunity to praise in the midst of the ruins, in the midst of the disappointment, in the midst of having an endless list of wants and nothing to show for it. And it's the vision that, praise be to God, that we have tonight. Because this is who we have. He took what we deserved. And in its stead, he gave us himself. And this is a gift that every human being, every man, woman, and child needs to receive. Because, as Paul says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. None of us get out of this. All of us are in need of it. And those consequences, as he says, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God, the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. That's the gift. And it's the gift that allows us to receive everything else as a gift. That when we receive him as the gift, as the thing that we did not deserve, then we admit that everything else in life we also don't deserve. And when we do that, that's the hope, to be thankful. And what's great about this is that this is not just some spiritual religious hope, but it's actually, as Paul says elsewhere in Romans, he who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? Graciously give us all things. It's the down payment. Talking about everything that's coming. Your life might be a wreck until the very end, and you still come out smelling like a rose because you've received the thing that gives you all things. All things. See, that is the hope to be thankful. Receive God in the life that he gives as the gift that he truly is. Receive it as the gift. Recognize that you have nothing to stand on except for his grace, except for his free gift. And I know this is Thanksgiving Sunday. I don't know why it is that you're here. And I don't know where it is, where you're at with God or this search or wherever it might be. But tonight is a better night than any to receive him. To receive him either for the first time or to receive him in a deeper way that you maybe didn't even know that you needed to until you were faced with the disappointments and the expectations and the entitlement that comes when you and I have nothing. See, that is the hope. And so I don't know where you're at. I don't know what it is that you came in here with. I don't know where your headspace is or what life looks like right now, but I would just invite you to close your eyes, all of you. And between you and God, if you are ready to accept Jesus as the first time, perhaps you've never received him. Perhaps you find yourself here tonight not knowing even why you showed up. But if you're ready to receive him for the first time, I would just ask for you to raise your hand. This is between you and the Lord, no other human being. And for all of us, this is an opportunity for us to cry out again, Abba, Father, we have no rights. We are owed nothing except the judgment that you took upon yourself. Would you teach us, Lord, this week to be mindful of the things that you have graciously given us? The endless list of gifts. Jesus, would you invite us into the reality of gratitude of all the great things that you shower on us day after day, of which we have done nothing to deserve and everything to lose. Lord, would you go before us as we encounter families and friends and communities broken by the world, divided by tragedies, ruined by bitterness. Would you prepare us to be a fragrance of thanksgiving in their midst? Father, would you posture us in this season to celebrate, to give thanks? We thank you, Jesus. It's in your name we pray. Amen.